On July 9, 1993, British scientists announced that they have used DNA to positively identify the remains of Tsar Nicholas II and his family. But what happened to the Tsar and his family? And where did scientists get the DNA needed to identify them? Also, did DNA prove whether any of the Romanov children had survived? Nicholas II, the last emperor or Tsar of Russia, and his family were murdered in 1918 during the Russian Revolution, which brought Vladimir Lenin and the communist Bolsheviks to power. With the fall of the Communist Soviet Union in December 1991, there was a renewed interest in Russia over the deaths of the Tsar and his family, the Romanovs. Formerly secret Soviet documents led to a mass grave near Yekaterinburg, where human remains were found in 1991. British scientists used blood from Queen Elizabeth II's husband Prince Philip, who was the grandnephew of Nicholas II's wife Tsarina Alexandra, to make the DNA verification of Alexandra. For Tsar Nicholas, they exhumed the remains of his brother, Grand Duke George Alexandrovich, to make the DNA verification. The bodies of 3 of Nicholas and Alexandra's daughters were found and identified, although which daughter was which could not be individually determined using DNA. However, remains of 2 of the Romanov children, Crown Prince Alexei and one of the daughters, were not found in that mass grave with the rest of the family members in Yekaterinburg in 1991. Rumors had spread through Europe since the brutal 1918 executions that the youngest daughter, Anastasia, had somehow survived. A woman named Anna Anderson, who turned up in Germany in 1922, was the most convincing of those who claimed to be Anastasia. In 1994, a year after the initial Romanov DNA identifications were made, American and English scientists used DNA to prove conclusively that Anna Anderson was not, in fact, a Romanov. Then, in 2007, the bodies of Alexei and the last Romanov daughter were discovered not far from the mass grave where the rest of the family had been buried, definitively proving that Anastasia had not survived. Here are other events that happened today in history. In AD 118, Hadrian first enters Rome as emperor after suppressing revolts in the eastern part of the empire. In 1755, the French ambush and defeat the British at the Battle of the Monongahela near modern-day Pittsburgh. In 1762, Catherine the Great is proclaimed Empress of Russia, forcing her husband Peter III to abdicate. In 1793, Upper Canada becomes the first jurisdiction in the British Empire to pass a law freeing enslaved persons. In 1850, after only 16 months in office, U.S. President Zachary Taylor dies from an unidentified illness. In 1877, the All England Croquet and Lawn Tennis Club begins its first tennis tournament at Wimbledon. In 1955, Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock becomes the first rock song to hit number 1 on the US pop charts. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. Who became Queen of England and Ireland for just 9 days in 1553 after the death of King Edward VI? Mary, Queen of Scots? Lady Jane Grey? Eleanor of Aquitaine, or Anne Boleyn? Liked learning about Tsar Nicholas II and his family? Then you'll enjoy this one about the assassination of his grandfather, Tsar Alexander II. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.